Welcome to SJACE classes. I am Rajendra. Today I am going to teach you class 8 biology, and the topic is reproduction in plants, and the subtopic is agents of pollination. Agents of pollination. Today just we are going to study what is the role of agents, or you can say that agents, that means external factors which helps in pollination. That is pollination by insect, pollination by wind, and pollination by water. These three main factors which is responsible for the agents of pollination. Okay, when we are talking about the pollination by insect, it is known as entomophily, or you can say that the pollination by insect is called entomophily, or we also say that this is the pollination by insect is the, you can say that, most way of pollinating the flowers. Okay, and that the flower should be some characteristics of agents of pollination by insect. And what should be the characteristics? First of all, if we are talking about the characteristics of insect pollinated flower, that is, first of all, nectaries will be there. Nectaries in sense, that means the substances which is secreted by the flowers, or their glands are there. Nectaries glands will be there. Yeah, the glands are there which secrete nectaries, and they are in sweet smell or also sweet in taste. Okay, sweet smell. And one thing is there, we know that the flower is the most attractive part of the plant, so they have bright colored also for attract the insect. So the flower should be bright colors, or the petals should be bright colors, nectaries will be there, sweet smell, or the nectaries or the liquid which is secreted by that flower should be sweet in smell or sweet in taste also. Apart from that, sticky stigma. Sticky, that means there is a substance secreted by the stigma, that is known as sticky substance. Why it is secreted? To stuck the pollen grains. Okay, so the sticky stigma should be there. Sticky pollen grains even. If the flowers are bisexual, so if the insect sit on another flower, and after that they just flew and sit on another flowers and brush the pollen grains, that means the sticky pollen should be there to stuck the wasp, or what may be butterflies, honeybee, moth will be there. Okay, so sticky stigma and sticky pollen grains both will be there. It is often happens in the sweet pea, sunflower, or marigold, or maybe another plant. You can see here, if suppose this is a flower and these are the petals, so if the flowers male and female parts in between or in the center of the flower, and some just insect is going to catch or going to just hover the flower, and it is trying to just collect the nectaries, so it should be sit there on the what? Petals. So the flower should be large to sit in the flowers. This is also the characteristics of insect pollinated flowers. If the flower will be small, no pollination at all through the insect pollination or the entomophily. Now when we are talking about the second is wind pollinated, or the pollination by wind. It is the second, the other name is known as anemophily. If the agent is wind, that is no need of any nectaries are there, no needs of sweet smell or bright colors are there. It is no need of the large flowers will be there. Okay, one thing will be there, that is, you can see here, wind pollinated flower characteristics, and the flowers are small, white and dull colored. It is not necessary to flower to be large. Small will be there because the pollination which is going on in this is wind pollinated, and which doesn't recognize where it is bright or where it is dull, where it is white or where it is red. Okay. Now the bright color do not produce nectar. Yes, I have told you. Pollens are small, dry and light-weighted. Yeah, keep it in mind. This is important points. Pollens are small. In this insect pollinated flowers, pollens may be large, but when we are talking about the pollination by wind, the flower should or the pollen grains should be very small, because due to fluke or being flight, it is very necessary the flower should be or the pollen grains should be small or lightweighted even. Large number of pollen grains are there. Yes, if the pollens are happening through the wind, it is not necessary all the pollen grains are flew through the or with the help of wind and they reach to the stigma. It is not necessary. Some pollen grains may be destroyed. They just fell down on the ground also and they may be destroyed. In that case, the plant should be produce more and more pollen grains. In the case of wind pollinated flowers, or the flowers which is responsible in the wind pollinated are mostly wheat, maize, rice and grass. Feathery stigma are there and so on. Feathery stigma, that means when the pollen grains are stuck to that particular flower which is going to be the wind pollinated, the stigma is feathery. Feathery, that means they have feathers like a structure on which the pollen grains can just stuck into them, or they just stopped by the feathers in the stigma. So it should be the feathery stigma is there. The third is pollination by water. Pollination by water, that means it is also called hydrophilic. Hydrophilic due to the water, or the pollination being happens by water. The plants are there, you can see here, hydrilla. Yes, I have left one thing, hydrilla. Okay, hydrilla and vallisneria are the two plants. You can see that the sea plants is there, which is totally submerged in the water. How the pollination occurs in that plants, you can just the male plant which have the anther or the stamen, they just mature and detach from the plant and come to the water, and it floats passively and reach to the female part of the plant which have the female flowers, or you can say that the flowers which have stigma, they just capture, or when they just capture the stigma or they reach to the stigma, the anther burst there and the pollen grains reach to the stigma in the case of hydrophilic pollination or the pollination by water. It is a critical pollination which happens in normally the aquatic plants, or you can say the submerged aquatic plants, normally hydrilla and vallisneria. Vallisneria have two types of separate plants are there, male and female. Just I was telling you about particular the vallisneria plant, because they have the both male and female flowers are separate. So first of all, the male flowers, or you can say the plants which have male flowers, they detach to their plants and just come to the floor of the water and just swim passively with the help of current of water and reach to the female plant which have the stigma and reach there and burst the anther, and pollen grains are attached to the stigma, and in this way the pollination occurs. Now, apart from that, I want to tell you one thing, that is artificial pollination. Artificial pollination is a pollination in which we will have to concern about the pollination, or the plant which we want to pollinated artificially, or you can say that with the help of our own convenience we can do it. Why it is so? To just improve our yielding capacity, to make the crop better, to make the plants better, to make the flower better, we will have to do it. And first of all, what we should do to adapt this method, first of all, when the flowers, the both parts will be there, or the bisexual flowers will be there, first of all we should emasculate the male part. Emasculate, that means removal of stamen from the flowers before maturing. It is, keep it in mind, before maturing we will have to emasculate the male part of the flower and just bag it with the polythene, okay, and left the female parts of the flower there, and the part of the flowers or the anther which we want to just pollinate, make it them the mature of the male plant, and just by very neat and hygienic method we should just drop by our own convenience our own male pollen grains to that particular stigma which we have just bagged with the polythene. And after that, this is known as artificial pollination, because we are doing the pollination. The natures are not involving in. We are involving, we are just forcefully, we are doing the pollination. What we want to do, and what we want to just pollinate with the male and female flowers. Okay? So this is called the artificial pollination. After that, there is one, the fertilization is there. Fertilization, that means what I have told you about the pollination, agents of pollination, and now the last is fertilization. What is fertilization? Once the pollen grains reach to the stigma, okay, just I am going to give you a diagrammatic representation. Yes, fertilization. Fertilization, that means when once the pollen grains reach to the stigma of the female flower and just it grows there, and the pollen tubes are generated, and their male gametes are there, and when the male gametes reach to the egg cell, there the fertilization occurs. That means we can say that pollination is to reach the pollen grains on the stigma, and fertilization is there once the pollen grains reach to the stigma and the male gametes, when it not reach to the egg cell, that is not, we call it fertilization. Or you can say that the reaching of male gametes to the egg cell is known as fertilization. Okay? Yes. In fertilization, what the pollen tubes, when the pollen grains stuck here on the stigma, it takes a time to swells up, and there the outer exine and under the intine layers are of the pollen grains, they just burst, and the pollen tube nuclei and the male gametes are generated in the pollen grains, and they just reach downward with the help of pollen tube, and it is reached to the egg cell and fertilization occurs. This after the fertilization, what happens? Many petals are falls off, the ovary becomes converted into fruit, and the ovules comes into the seed, or you can say that the converted into seed. There are two male gametes are there. One male gamete fused to the egg cell, and the second male gamete fused to the polar nuclei. that is known as double fertilization, triple fusion. Why we call it double fertilization, triple fusion? Because there are two male gametes are there. First of all, one male gamete fused to the egg cell, and the second male gamete fused to the that two polar nuclei. That means one or two here or one here, three. That means double fertilization and triple fusion. That is known as double fertilization.